Okay, so here's a few reasons why you shouldn't buy the new Toyota Prius, the redesigned Prius. If you didn't know, Toyota redesigned the Prius in 2023, and it's an awesome car, but there's a few instances, I guess, where you probably shouldn't buy it. Number one, road noise. It's probably the biggest reason that I can think of in my experience with the new Prius for people who are sensitive to noise, road noise particularly, not to buy the new Prius. You guys can hear it, I'm sure, in the video. There is a good amount of road noise. Now, there has been talk that it's about the tires, that's the reason that we get a lot of road noise out of the new Prius, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. I do agree that you could probably reduce the road noise if you went to a different tire than what Toyota puts on it. But nonetheless, the car doesn't have a ton of sound insulation or sound deadening materials. Rightfully so. I mean, the more of that kind of stuff you add to the car, the more weight you add and the less fuel efficiency the car is going to get, or the less fuel efficient it's going to be. So you're going to have quite a bit of road noise. It's probably the only real valid complaint I've heard out of the talking heads out there, you know, the vehicle reviewers. It does produce quite a bit of sound, and that's in addition to the noises that it makes just because it's an EV. In other words, it makes noises when you're going below 20 miles an hour just to alert pedestrians, I guess, that there is a vehicle around. If noises bother you, there are going to be quite a few. Next up, depends on how big you are, I think. I mean, you know, it always makes me laugh when bigger people, and I'm not talking about, you know, overweight or whatever. I'm just talking about bigger people. Some people are just bigger, right? I'm 5'9.5" and right around 180 pounds, and I fit pretty well in here. But I could imagine if I was about 6'2", maybe even 6 foot, and another 20 pounds or so, it would start to get pretty tight in here for me. I mean, I fit pretty well the way that it is right now, but it is a smaller car. And don't get into the Prius expecting that it's going to be like a mid-size car or an SUV. You're going to be very disappointed. It is a compact car, and it is designed that way. Spaces in here are smaller, although again, I think they're perfectly adequate for an average sized person. And the average sized person in the US anyway is me, about 5'9" and maybe a little bit lighter than I am, but I am the average sized person. And they did a good job with that, because the average sized person, me, fits in here pretty well. I think if you're much bigger, you're going to have an issue. Now, what if you're much smaller? Let's say you're 5'4". I don't know. You might have issues the other way around in one area, and that area would be the steering wheel. The steering wheel kind of blocking the gauge cluster. Those are some complaints that I've heard, again, from the talking heads out there, that they couldn't see the gauge cluster, that the top of the steering wheel up here blocks the gauge cluster. I could see that if you were smaller proportion from the waist up. In other words, a smaller individual. That might bother you a little bit. Otherwise, you'll fit perfectly fine in here. I mean, the smaller the better, right? Again, it is a compact car. Next up, and this one is ironic. If you love to visit the gas station, of course, I'm kidding, but nonetheless, maybe part of your routine is just to go to the gas station, visit with the clerks and the people there, maybe the neighbors there at the same time you are every day. You're not going to have to do that. I'm getting 54 miles per gallon right now in this car, and it's awesome. Of course, that means I don't have to spend as much time at the gas station. One of those crazy things, I know. Lastly, let's talk about the attention that you're going to get in this car. You know, if you're an introvert, you probably aren't going to want a lot of social interaction with other people, strangers, people you don't know. And I know this might be a kind of a crazy thing to bring up, but a lot of people notice this car because it is different. There's really nothing else that looks like it out on the road right now. I get questions about what it is, primarily, or maybe because I've taken the badging off, so people can't just read it, they have to talk to me. So I guess if you're an introvert and that bothers you, maybe leave the badging on, and then some people won't bother you because they'll just know. But anyway, people are going to ask you what it is. It's new, it's unique, particularly when you pull up beside somebody somewhere that's outside of the vehicle. Do you hear that noise? It makes weird noises. It almost sounds like some sort of a spaceship or something. Kind of looks like one a little bit too. But people are going to hear that. It's going to draw attention. People ask me, how's the fuel economy? How is it doing from a reliability standpoint? How do I like it? Is there any room in it? All kinds of things. Anything that you could think of that people would ask about a new car, particularly a new model, you're going to get asked. So you're going to get a lot of attention on that. Now, as far as me, do I like the car still? I've talked about it in videos, how much I love the car, and I still do. This car is awesome. It makes for a great daily driver, it burns such small quantities of gasoline. It doesn't make you feel like you're wasting gas when you're out just cruising around, enjoying the car. Not to mention the trips to the grocery store, the trips to the Lowe's, wherever you may go. It burns very little gas, and that is kind of nice. It's a good feeling. After having vehicles that aren't like that burn tons of gasoline, it's kind of nice to drive around and not have to pay so much attention to that gas gauge up there. If there is one dislike for me for this car, it's the fact that I can't put it into EV mode and have it stay there. In other words, it kind of has its own ideas when it comes to EV mode. You can hit the button. There is a button down there for EV mode. But under certain circumstances, it won't stay in EV mode. It'll switch back to combustion if it needs to. The engine will fire up, and you can't cruise around in EV mode anymore. Now, I don't believe the Prius Prime is like that. I think the Prime is set up in a way where you can select EV-only mode and just drive around until you exceed the battery capacity, or maybe if you jump on the gas too hard. I'm very curious to find out on that myself. There will be a Prius Prime in the future, not the near future, but down the road. I can't wait to experience it. Going to be interesting to see. Anyway, just wanted to get on, kind of talk about those couple of things. You know, maybe you're in the market, you're considering it. There are a couple of reasons why you probably shouldn't get into the new Toyota Prius. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree. I'd just be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.